The next part of the assignment for the first class is to do a series of value scales. And everyone received a black to white value scale, which shows you in 10 steps, 10 percentage steps, how a black and white value changes at 10% increments. So the very first one here is 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And almost every piece of art that you have, whether it's color or black and white, has, generally speaking, a full range of values. However, since we are working in graphite, we run into the issues of the hardness of the pencil. I happen to be working with a 2H pencil here, which is relatively hard. And the thing that you have to be concerned about is that if you may not, with a harder pencil, be able to get the full range, but you should try to get as full a range as possible. The way that we do these value scales with graphite is we start with the lightest tone first. And remember, previously I spoke about how to create an even tone with a graphite, whether you're using a mechanical pencil or whether you're using an actual wood pencil with lead. And that is to hold the pencil fairly close to or parallel to the page, keeping your hand very far back on the shank of the pencil, so that when you apply the graphite to the page, you end up putting down a very, very light tone. And the way that you build this tone up is by filling in the entire length, except for the first one, which is a 0% or total white, is you start by putting in an even tone of gray in a very light shade, or your 10% value, all the way to the end of your box length. Now, I know it's a little hard to see this, but I will create some stills and you'll be able to see it a little better. So basically what you're going to do first is you're going to fill in very evenly using very small circular strokes and being very patient with this to get your first layer of values. Now you might find that there are little areas in the shading where things are a little darker or a little lighter. If you want to even things out, you need to go into the lighter areas and match those values to the ones next to it. So that means with your pencil, you work just in the little areas that are lighter and you darken them up, because every time you put graphite to paper and you add another layer, it just makes it darker. So if you want to even things out, you have to make sure that you don't touch the areas that are dark and just fill in the areas that are light. As you can see, at this point, I have created one value at 10% based on our value scale, all the way across the 10 value scale blocks. What we're going to do next, and what we will do for every preceding step, is using the same amount of pressure and the same amount of application of graphite. You're going to start with the second value block, which is 20%, and you're going to fill in all of the blocks until they are 20% of value, going all the way to the end of the value scale. Once you've done that, you will then see if your value matches, and you can tell by lining it up and squinting at it and seeing if the value is there. But then after all of that is done, then you do the third step. Again, the same amount of pressure, the same technique, getting very nice even tone all the way to the end. Matching it to see if your value scale matches. Then we do the fourth one, same amount of pressure all the way to the end. Now you may find, even after doing all of this, that you haven't quite gotten as far with the value. You may have to go back in again and do a second layer of gray application. But what you want to achieve is try and match the values so that you get to 100% at this end. Now, I just want to make a note of caution. I am working with a 2H pencil. That's a fairly hard pencil, and you may not be able to get an entirely 100% gray or black at this end of the scale because the pencil will not allow you to do that without creating what's called a bloom, which means that you get this very shiny surface on the drawing. You want to avoid that. So you want to get it as dark as you can at this end, but allowing for the hardness of the pencil. When you do your value scale for your HB or your B pencil, you'll find it much easier to get these darker values. But you're going to use the same process for each hardness of pencil. And be sure to label your gradation scale, this one being 2H. And if you're using a particular pencil, you might want to also indicate which manufacturer of pencil you used. And that's basically the lesson.